as you know, we're in Florida. And where is this candidate? What part of Florida? Do you know what district you're in?
The 6th district.
6th district of Florida. A young man named John Ward. He is a businessman. Is running for. Is he now running for the Republican primary? Yes. He's running for the Republican primary, and now a couple of things you should know before we play this clip. It is takes place at a GOP. Lunch get together at the Mount Dora Republican Club, and they rented out some type of little banquet room, and John Ward is there. He looks like a guy who would be a Republican congressman from Florida, frankly, and blue blazered, and he's addressing some questions from some of the people in attendance. So two things you should also know. Florida is a state in the United States. It is our most southern state, I think, right? Speaking, I mean, just all the way down there.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It is, and it's also the closest state to the island of Puerto Rico. Now, you may not be aware of this, but Puerto Ricans are Americans. The island does not have the representation that it should have as a state. It's not a state. It's basically a colony, a protectorate, I think we call it. And but Puerto Ricans do not need a passport to travel from state to state any more than I would if I was to go to Massachusetts or to Connecticut or to Ohio or Nebraska or any of the other states in this country. And if I move to these other things, like I remember a lot of people from New Orleans apparently settled in Houston. And it was a problem in some respects. It was, but I don't remember it was a problem insofar that people couldn't go back to New Orleans because they wanted to go back and they just didn't have the money to go back and rebuild. But I don't remember any politicians taking a huge issue with that. Here is John Ward apparently not fully comprehending the idea that Puerto Ricans are Americans and that what he's saying is incredibly offensive. But what really is shocking to me is you hear not a peep from the people sitting there.
A lot of Puerto Ricans have moved either temporarily or permanently to Florida. How do you respond to them when they say that they need more help and that the aid to Puerto Rico is not enough?
Your turn. So, first of all, I don't think they should be allowed to register to vote. And it's not lost on me that I think the Democrat Party's really hoping that they can change kind of the voting registers in a lot of counties and districts, and I don't think they should be allowed to do that. Secondly,
period. I just want you to marinate in that for a moment. Now, I think it is true. Democrats are excited at the prospect that you may have a group of people who have just been maligned and denied the basic type of services that one would expect, and given them an opportunity to vote against the party that was responsible for that.
Threw paper towels at you.
But under what auspices would you say Puerto Ricans who have moved to Florida can't register here?
I think they would try to force through some type of length of residency law or something. I'm sure they're looking into stuff like that. There's no doubt about it.
Insane.
I have no doubt they're looking at that.
And how long would that length have to be? Year and a half?
Would you put anything past these people?
No, but still.
That I think the Democrat Party's really hoping that they can change kind of the voting registers in a lot of counties and districts, and I don't think they should be allowed to do that. Secondly, I've got a good friend who actually runs Tote Maritime, which is one of the largest shipping concerns that runs the route here from up in Jacksonville over to Puerto Rico. So I get pretty current updates on what's going on in Puerto Rico. I think the situation's improving a lot there. and where I'm going with that comment is we should be looking to put the Puerto Ricans back in their homes, right? So the idea that they can come to the mainland United States, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I think we should be thinking about it in terms of getting them back home.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Like, right off the bat, I don't necessarily have a problem with them coming to the mainland.
So magnanimous.
Not necessarily. When I get down to specifics, there's a lot of specifics I don't like about it.
New outreach director right there. Did you see my question I ammed you? I am curious about that.
I did not.
Where did this Democrat Party thing come from?
Oh, that came from Frank Luntz.
Really?
Yeah. Democrat Party came from Frank Luntz because they determined that it sounded like rat. And they wanted to, that's where that came. That's how you get your card. That's how you get your Republican card.
They hired a poet.
Washington Post reports today that at least 4,645 people died as a result of Hurricane Maria and its devastation across Puerto Rico last year. This is a new Harvard study. It was released today, Tuesday. The official government death toll, incidentally, folks, 64. The study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. It found that healthcare disruption for the elderly, loss of basic utility services for the chronically ill, had significant impacts across the U.S. territory. In addition, the wiping out of the electrical grid had widespread impacts on infrastructure. These researchers calculated the number of deaths by surveying nearly 3,300 randomly chosen households across the island, comparing the estimated post-hurricane death rate to the mortality rate of the year before. So they saw this increased mortality rate. Pretty stunning. But it's nice that Republican running for Congress doesn't have a problem with them necessarily coming to the mainland.
How many people even live on the island? Like, that's so high.
To have 5,000 people die, I don't know what that represents in terms of percentage, but that's a lot of people dying. Yes, that is. I don't know where it rates in terms of natural disasters in this country, but I would imagine it's one of the highest.
It's like a lot of people lost a family member. My tattoo artist's grandpa died, actually. His family's from there, and he just went to visit for what he thought was a few months, and then he was there when the hurricane hit and couldn't get medical treatment.
I mean, according to this study, 4,600, obviously more than people who died on 9/11, more than Katrina. I don't know about any other, one event causing.
Does it say when the deaths occurred? Were they like treatment and weeks after? Or
they are, the way they're
storm?
Calculating it is basically just, it's mathematical. So I don't know if they have like breakdowns of specific ones, but they think that some would, that the number kept rising until early December. So that's October, November, really over the course of like 2.5 months, 3 months, where you got the increased death rate. So.